life on the internet. It is, and I posted about this recently too. And often there's personal and there's private. Personal is how you connect with people. Private is whatever you don't want the whole world to know about. Like, it is your prerogative to decide what fits into which bucket. But the way that you connect with people, the way that you make friends, the way that you build trust is by having shared experiences or shared personalities or similar quirks that make that other person feel like they want to be a part of who you are.
Welcome to the Prime People Podcast, where we cover all things that got us to where we are today, our team building strategies, the marketing and sales tips that we've learned through thousands of transactions, productivity tips, ways to really just hold yourself accountable to accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and all things content creation, personal development, and not to mention we have some of the best guests on the planet. How did you even end up where you are today? I'd love a little bit of backstory for the audience.
I thought you were going to say, I'd love to dig into your soul. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll go
That's
there.
aggressive. Yeah.
How did I get to where I am? I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I had these big unicorn dreams of going out to California, going out to Hollywood and being on entertainment news. That was my dream. And so I went out there. I went to USC for college. It was a top journalism school. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so easy. This is going to be great. I'm already in LA. I'm going to this amazing school. But then had the rude awakening that actually, Giselle, no one wants to hire you because nobody knows who you are. You are incredibly vanilla and you are not at all connected to Hollywood from your family or who you're sleeping with. So good riddance. This is going to be great. And somebody gave me the advice that I should learn how to do everything, which I did learn a little bit of that in school, but where I went to school, and this is, more than 10 years ago now, digital streaming and networking was not the way that it is right now. YouTube
Sure.
was not a verb. Everyone and their mom did not have a blog. Influencer was definitely not a legitimate job title. And so I was given the advice to learn how to do everything while I was hustling because I didn't take the traditional 9 to 5 path that a lot of my friends were doing. I was taking every single job that I could as a production assistant, or I was the one who would be on red carpets with the clipboard and the guest list. And I was the one, bringing coffee to the different executives and agents and calendaring and all of that. And also like cleaning and everything. But I also saved up and bought a camera and I started putting videos on this little platform called YouTube. And again, really thinking that no one would see them. I simply wanted to get better at using production equipment and I wanted to get more confident in front of the camera because while I was really great at masking it and putting things together and had a lot of experience speaking growing up and I did pageants growing up, I really did not have any sense of self and was massively, massively, massively insecure when it came to putting a camera in front of my face and hitting that record button and feeling like I needed to be absolutely perfect in every single regard. So started putting videos on this little platform called YouTube. And what I ended up finding were these extraordinarily average teenagers who had millions upon millions of subscribers. And no one was talking about this. No one was talking about this phenomenon where here are these kids who are taking videos, in their dorm rooms or in their homes and they're rambling for 45 minutes. I mean, this is anti everything that I've ever learned as a polished journalist of like what videos are supposed to be. And while I was very rebellious initially, like, who do these kids think they are? Like, I don't understand it. And wanting to just completely trash on everything that they were doing. I also had a moment where the light bulb went off and I'm like, wait a minute, there's something here. Like, why aren't people talking about this? Why aren't people using this strategy? And it was then that I realized I didn't learn how to practice this advice or practice it, but it was that people had been craving human connection. And anytime I talk about social media and especially in our socially distant times, that's what I go back to is like, look, you guys, people have been craving human connection long before social distancing was the way of our world. And here were these extraordinarily average kids who had cult-like communities and their communities felt seen and they felt heard. And all because they felt like they could either see themselves in these characters or they could see their best friends in these characters or they could see people who they wanted to be in these characters. And so I began studying the platform like crazy. Every single time a video did well for them, again, I was still sucking on camera and had no desire to be a YouTuber. YouTuber was not even a thing. And I just began to study what were they doing. Maybe it was that they were consistently coming out with a new video every single Wednesday. Maybe it was the way they said hi to their audience or would shout them out as incentive to watch until the end. And then slowly YouTube began coming out with curriculum to be able to learn more about the different features on the platform. And so I would use all of this knowledge to set myself apart in any audition room, meeting, opportunity that I had, because again, no one was talking about it. And social media, I think we had at that time, I think we had Facebook and maybe Instagram and Twitter. We had Twitter. I don't even know if Facebook business pages had come out yet. So and that's ultimately what it did. Long story longer, it did help to catapult my television career, where I was one of the first real life faces for CoverGirl Cosmetics. I think you can still see my face on Proactive vending machines. I don't know if I'm pretty sure they have that in Canada. And I worked with a lot of different TV networks to begin putting their content onto the internet. And then from there, it catapulted my TV career. I had an international TV career. I transformed into radio. And then more recently, just in the last few years, I ended up becoming more of a corporate marketing executive, and then had the opportunity to share the stage with this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk as my first keynote speaking opportunity, where speaking was not even part of my dreams at the time. I'm a lot more introverted than people think. So for me to be on stage with a lot of people, that was not at all part of my dreams. But I didn't expect any of this journey to happen at all. And so now my main focus is speaking, coaching, and digital products. My clients are either influencers or people of influence. So we have influencers, the ones who have a ton of followers, but they don't quite know why, and they don't know how to establish longevity beyond virality, or they don't know how to monetize or establish legitimate influence, because believe it or not, those things are not directly correlated with your follower count. And then I have my people of influence. So the people who are successful in their company or their industry or their region, and they're just now starting to realize that they need to be forward facing in what they're doing, and that social media is a lot more powerful of a tool than they think. And so it's helping them to take a page out of the playbook. I love putting these two groups together so that they can learn from one another in terms of how you can begin showing up for yourself online, but also how that translates into what you do offline. So I like to say that my style is a mix of my certified high performance coaching, it's motivation, it's mindset, and then it's the strategy and the tactics and the practical tools of social media. So there's a really long nugget. There were plenty of fall on my face moments and heartbreaks and rugs pulled out from underneath me, and things in between. But that's the long summary of how I got to where I'm at in terms of being a master of social media and coaching.
So, and the way I like to look at it is if you're not experiencing adversity, you're not growing, right? And the one thing I heard consistently through that conversation was you didn't get fancy, right? You came into an industry, you realized how it operated, you tried to add value to it. If the value, wasn't necessarily in line with who you were or not there yet, I mean, you're still developing a skill set throughout that journey, right? So for the people that are watching this, I want to extrapolate a couple things that we're going to get into and how she's going to add a lot of value to your lives is somebody who's an actual tactician and operator going into an industry, seeing opportunities, adapting and finding the hacks to implement. And you touched on a couple of things, Giselle, that I think a lot of people get paralyzed when they jump onto these platforms because they are important, right? And we'll get into that in a second. These platforms, if you don't exist on them, eventually you're going to be out of business. Like, I hate to say it any way other than that, but these are the new methods of communication. It used to be snail mail, it used to be, print advertising and billboards, and the companies that were around for, hundreds of years, some of them are out of business now because they didn't adapt to a new marketplace and where attention was going. So Giselle is going to teach you how to implement and not take yourself too seriously and how these platforms navigate, and break down the barriers. Now, let's start with that. What do you think the biggest barriers are in people's minds when it comes to jumping into a new environment? Like, you were in TV and radio and all these old school types of medias. Like, what barriers do you think you had to overcome to get into the world of social media?
Well, there is absolutely the idea of perfectionism, of thinking that we should walk into a brand new situation and dominate. And my friend, my colleague, and she's also a psychologist. She always uses the example of a baby's learning how to walk and falling constantly, but we're not pointing at the baby saying, "Oh, you're so dumb." Like, wow, like really, you're not walking already? You didn't just, it's like, no, no, no. Like you laugh and you say, "Oh, like come here, let me help you walk. Like you're gonna be just fine." And then from there, you learn how to run. But yet, as we get older, we think that we need to master something immediately. Oh, you want to take guitar lessons? You think that you're going to be Jimi Hendrix within a week. Like, no, you're going to suck. Like you really are. And you should be walking into a lot of these new platforms in the same way that you would walk into any new social situation. You don't walk into a party and then just go up to the first person you see and begin talking all about yourself and thinking of yourself as a life of the party or like you're better than everybody else, which like no, that's a very jerk move. Like you should be walking into any new situation, and if anything, like have a seat, learn, watch, see what people are doing, see the people who you want to associate yourself with. I say very often a quote from Melinda Gates's book, A Moment of Lift, where she said, "You don't meet a great friend, you recognize him or her or them." And I very much feel that way anytime I'm going into a brand new situation, and not just because I have social anxiety, believe it or not, but I totally do. But I will take a moment and look around and go, okay, where is my people? But also, where's the bathroom? Where's the water? Where are the puppies? Where are the exercise? That's how my mind works. But thinking that you should just walk in and immediately know where everything is and how to, like, no, that's just not how it works. You should be a student of what you want to do first. And my personality is that I will become obsessed with it. Like I will want to learn everything about it and how it created and how people are using it. But just giving yourself permission to suck. Like quite bluntly. You're going to get on TikTok. You've never been on TikTok before. You're probably going to suck. It's very possible that, like my friend Phil Palin, you will get on and your first video will go viral. But that is the exception, not the rule. And if anything, he then had to have his humble pie where he had one video that was great. And I had to give him, the come to Jesus pep talk of, okay, so just know that you can't then use this to set your bar for every single video that follows. You just happen to get lucky. You might get lucky again, but that's not typically how the platform works. If anything, study that coincidence. There should never be a coincidence in anything. Study the coincidence and figure out what was it about this video that for some reason people really felt sucked in by. Because truly everything works and nothing works. But what were some of the elements in that video that you could then reproduce into something else? So
I'm going to jump on you for a
yeah,
second, actually,
yeah.
because there's so many things that in rooms that I've been in with you on Clubhouse with James and the rest of the Zillow Killer crew. I mean, you don't hear it because I'm on the other side and I'm muted, but like my mind is being blown and it is changing my perception on media. And I'm a media guy, right? Like we do production. I got a videographer running around here doing something or other. And I'm in this world. But what you just said, we need to pause on that for a second because there's recent posts that I've seen. And it's funny because it's actually, I've seen them recently, but it's old content that you posted about, oh, use the word boo boo, but your post that went viral and got 10,000 views doesn't necessarily mean that your next one's going to have 10,000 every single time. And these platforms can make you feel like I got 6,000 on my last one. I got 200 on this one. And you've snapped me out of it because I'm putting out content daily now. And I don't care if I get 150. I had one that had 6,000 the other day. Awesome. But I'm really not caring because you can go viral at any moment, right?
Yeah. And even think about that 150 people. Could you fit 150 people in your office right now? I couldn't fit
No.
150 people in my house. Like, also 10 people, 8 people, like 3 people, I would be overwhelmed. Like,
Good.
we
I never
have
thought
to
about it like
remind
that.
ourselves, like, those are human beings that are consuming your content. And my biggest pet peeve is, oh well, no one watched, no one liked my post. Really? Because I see 7 likes on that post, like 7 people. And if you had, again, I always try to bring it back down to humanization. If you had a party and 7 people showed up, would you say to all 7 of those people, "Oh my God, no one showed up. I'm so mad." Rude. They
That's a
showed
funny
up.
way to put it. I never thought
They,
about it like
they
that.
brought cupcakes. They said you looked really pretty tonight. What do you mean no one okay, well, I guess I'm no one. So I will go ahead and leave. The second thing that I hear is well, I don't want to put my whole life on the internet. Yeah, I don't want you to put your whole life on the internet. I don't want your whole life on the internet either. I don't put my whole life on the internet. It is, and I posted about this recently too, and often there's personal and there's private. Personal is how you connect with people. Private is whatever you don't want the whole world to know about. Like, it is your prerogative to decide what fits into which bucket. But the way that you connect with people, the way that you make friends, the way that you build trust is by having shared experiences or shared personalities or similar quirks that make that other person feel like they want to be a part of who you are. And so that's also another one where people don't know what to post. They think they're supposed to document every single part of their day and post as much as possible. But more is only more if more is actually connecting. If it's not, then you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something sticks. And chances are you won't even be able to identify when it sticks or why it sticks or be able to do it again if you're not clear on what that looks like. And then the third thing is just people not knowing what to post. Well, I don't know what I should share. I don't know. Like, I'm not that interesting. Okay. Again, it's not about being interesting. If anything, what I learned early on, and I'm so grateful for that, although it took me a very, very long time to unlearn, is that people are attracted to the most extraordinarily average things. It is relatability. Relatability does not mean that you can't share some of your big triumphs and moments and victories and whatever, but it's ultimately like, do you even know who you're talking to, and do you even know why they follow you? And what are they hoping that you will help them through, just like a friend would help you through? And I just find that time and time again, the hardest brands to humanize are humans. The hardest brands to humanize are humans, because we feel like we have to overthink every single aspect of what it is that we're posting. I hate when people say, well, I just don't know what my niche is. You are your niche. Your business can have a niche. You are your niche, your personality, your perspective, your opinions. Humans are allowed to have multiple interests as long as you are the thread that weaves it all together. And as long as you know who you're talking to, then it's not going to be as hard to think about what you need to share. What are those 5 to 10 questions that you're getting all the time? There. That's your content. Recycle, repurpose, rewash, repeat. There you go.
That is fascinating too. And I'm realizing it now too. I mean, I spent a long time in my life trying to fill other people's shoes, right? And we talked about this the other day on Clubhouse, and I think the vulnerability is what helps people connect with each other. That I've had my struggles, and you shared that you had some of yours too, and that actually connects us more. Understanding that we're all going through this together. The more you share those vulnerabilities, the more your audience connects with you, because nobody cares about the guy that's on front of the Lambo pretending that he's selling every single $1 million house and he wants his brand to be luxury. Nobody can connect with that, right? If you, even
Mhm.
if you're going after those people, typically the people that really have it don't act like they have it, so they're missing on all kinds of points. But you touched on a couple things there that, again, from a tactical perspective, I want the audience to pay attention to, because she's weaving a tale, but you need to understand the practical advice that's in there in terms of understanding the buckets or the types of content that you're posting, right? Because when I'm looking at people's feeds, if all it is photos of their dog, and they don't understand what people are coming to their platform for or what they have to offer, they're missing the mark altogether, right? They think they need to post photos of for sales and listings, and I need to tell everybody how much real estate I'm selling because I'm in this business. Look at my feed. I rarely post anything that I'm doing from a sale perspective. You'll see snapshots here and there, but that's like 10% of my content. How do you establish the buckets of content that you're going to be posting, or how did you go through that process yourself and listen to your audience and identify what they were coming to you for?
Well, I separate content into 4 big umbrella buckets that all of you can use this framework as well. So write these ones down. The first one is the introduction or the reintroduction. There are new people who are coming to your page all the time, especially on TikTok, when the majority of people who are seeing your content don't already follow you. But you need to think of yourself, especially as you are a personal business brand. There are a lot of people who are coming to your page who don't follow you. They are coming to your page because maybe they heard your name, or maybe they met you, or they're thinking about working with you. And so they are using your page as like an extra website, and they want to know who you are. So it is important to constantly be introducing and reintroducing yourself. And those who do it best are doing it in every single one of their posts, where it, in some cases it quite literally is, "Hi, I'm Justin. I work in real estate," But in other ways it is you sharing your core values, pieces of your life that mean a lot to you, the way that you do business, the way that you lead your team, and you're reintroducing yourself in that way. The second type of content is connection. And very, very rarely do people do this right. In fact, I'm coaching someone through this right now, where I always ask, when was the last time that you really connected with your audience? And by that, I mean, it's not just you writing a caption directed towards them, but when was a time that you asked them a question? Asked them about themselves, not, "Hey, what do you want to see from me? What kind of a content do you want to see from me?" But who are you? Who are you? Do you have children or not? Do you live in this area or not? Do you ever get anxiety or not? I say that just because that is one piece of what I do talk about is my anxiety, which we can jump into as well, because a lot of people are so surprised to hear about that. The third is value or a lesson. So a lot of people think that content is supposed to be about me, 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 me. But in fact, the best way that you can create credibility, no matter what industry you are in, is by sharing some form of value or lesson. Well, but wait a minute, Giselle, if I'm giving them value or a lesson, then why would they want to pay for my services? Oh, no, 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 boo boo. Give them what they want for free, sell them what they need. Really, truly, you could go through any one of my feeds and get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars that you would get in a coaching session with me. But people will still buy that coaching session with me, because that value that I'm dropping is general, and they want the one-on-one tailored experience, and or they simply want the time to be with me. But I am building trust. I'm building that ethos by sharing some form of tactical, practical value, tool, lesson, whatever it is. And I do that on a regular basis. And then last but not least is I say it's the sell, but then in parentheses, I put without selling. You can combine all four of these things, or you can keep them separate, however your head works. But the sell is ultimately having some very direct call to action. And truthfully, you could do this in every single post. Maybe it is that you are requesting that people leave a comment. Sometimes you will see that I very clearly state in my caption, if it is a yes, drop a yes. If it is a no, drop a no. And I got that from Neil Patel, actually. I can't take credit. But in some cases, it is saying, sign up for my free webinar. Give me a call. I would love to work with you. I have a few spaces left in my coaching curriculum for next month. Sign up here. But either way, you're doing it in a way that isn't selling, because you're painting the picture of who you are, what you do, the way that you work, and the way that you'd be able to deliver potential and results to who it is that is looking into whatever it is that they're wanting to do with you. So typically I will categorize everything into those four different buckets, to the point to where now it just becomes natural. But then when we're talking about, okay, what about the different types of messaging pillars? Again, it always goes back to when I'm thinking about who my ideal client is. And I don't even think I've ever shared this before. So you're getting an exclusive here. But I always tell people, think of an actual human in your head when you are creating content. That doesn't mean that you're leaving anybody out, but simply, who is that person? Truth be told, a lot of people still are under the false pretense that as a woman, my ideal client is a woman, or that my audience is primarily women. When in fact, if you look at my demographics on each platform, I'm pretty much split right down the middle. And so when I'm thinking about who my ideal audience is, it's actually not a female, although you would think that I relate the most to women. Again, this false pretense. But my ideal client is actually a man. It's actually a girl dad. It's actually somebody who is a leader in what he's doing. He very much respects and has a probably a new understanding for what women can do. He's married happily. And so with that, I am not he might think that I'm beautiful, but he doesn't see me as somebody who he wants to date. And so I know like exactly who I'm talking to in my head. And whenever I'm thinking about the type of content that I'm putting out there, I'm thinking about that person. And truthfully, what helps is when you have a real person who matches that image in your head. And so for me, I grew up in a house full of boys. And so I am typically, I mean, as Justin, in our group of friends, I am the little sister. That is my comfort zone. And so a lot of the conversations that I'm actually having with my friends, with people who are in my masterminds, like the questions that are coming up time and time again, their fears, their hesitations, how they want to take things to the next level, I'm constantly writing it down. What are their questions? What are they wanting to talk about? And then even in my vulnerabilities and in my shares, because people will say, well, Giselle, you put everything on the internet. I went through like a crazy autoimmune condition. One of the things that I talk about too is where I don't consider myself to be an alcoholic, but I definitely have been an alcohol misuser. And I share that journey a lot because part of how I took my career to the next level was by reading Holly Whitaker's book, Quit Like a Woman, where she simply asked the question, not is alcohol keeping you from what you want to do, but is alcohol keeping you from what you want to do and to get there as quickly as you would like? And that for me was a game-changing moment in my career. And so whenever I'm sharing these private moments or these vulnerabilities, it's not because I want to give you a sob story. It's not because I want to impress you in some form or another. It's because I feel like it is a lesson that you need to hear. It is a shared experience that you need to be a part of. It is a part of the journey that you are either going through or have been through. And it brings us back to that shared experience and that feeling of community where I'm not sharing just to share. I'm sharing it because I know that it'll bring us closer together and that is going to be a moment that helps us to get even tighter together because I'm sharing that experience with you. So that's a big picture, but also like a holy F
Yeah, that's
way of getting to the four most important pieces of content, plus a message that I feel like people probably do need to hear who are listening to this conversation, especially in the world of real estate and business, where you mentioned this the other day, a lot of us have perhaps started drinking more during quarantine, or you're used to the conference lifestyle of being able to, go, 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 and some of the unhealthy coping mechanisms that have resulted as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll dig into that because I think that is a good conversation that people need to know about. And then we'll jump right back into the tactical side. But that conversation we had, I forget how it came up exactly, but I mean, I share openly that I struggled with addiction issues early on in my life. And, a couple times I probably could have died, but by the grace of God, I'm here today too. And I was given an opportunity to make a decision. I felt like he knocked on the door and he's like, hey, you done yet? And then apparently I wasn't. And then he's like, hey, you done yet? Right. And I said yes the second time and met my wife. I mean, changed my entire life and opened up a complete different world. And it goes back to what we said earlier, where early on I was doing things to be accepted. I thought I had to be in certain places. I thought I had to be at certain parties and get the cosign of certain people to be allowed into certain groups. When I realized I was beautifully, wonderfully made and I could create the type of life I wanted to create, it started opening doors. And there's a good friend of mine that I was talking to recently about this who quit drinking. And he knows I'm sober. I've been sober for 9 years plus, don't drink, haven't touched anything. And, I would go to conferences with him. Right. And these are massive conferences, hundreds of people, tons of agents, service providers, and anybody that's in the industry knows what those conferences can turn into late at night. And I was just always the guy that go home right after dinner. And my crew, a lot of the people that are here from the culture that we have, we're all kind of wired the same way. And, they know about me, they know my beliefs and they know how I operate. And, him recently not drinking really opened up a conversation where he's like, he realized that it was kind of a superpower and he was getting in these environments. He's like, I thought my friends were going to make fun of me. I thought I was going to be judged. And I told him I felt the same way. Like I came from the restaurant industry. I worked in a bar and I was a bouncer and a DJ and a manager and a marketing guy there. Like I did everything in that environment. When I quit, there was maybe a couple people that gave me a hard time, but quite frankly, they weren't really my friends. My actual friends were super supportive. They could care less. And it was never an issue because I don't judge people for what they do. I just know what's right for me and what's not right for me. But that goes right back down to the content. Everything you said, our brains are wired the same way because I'm speaking to who I actually am. So when you meet me, we can do business and it's not some fake image that you have of me that you're expecting to get that you're disappointed by and then we don't work together. So it's like a self-qualifying mechanism. But when I speak to my audience, I actually think about the different types of people that, I didn't even know were my audience, right? Like we do residential commercial here at Prime. we obviously have a lot of agents in our industry. So quite often my content is speaking to other people in my industry. But then I realized like the majority of my audience is just coming from a sales and marketing background. Then maybe they own a coffee shop or a shoe store or something else. And the tips that I'm giving, yes, it's from the lens of a real estate agent, but ultimately it has everything to do with creating content, marketing, getting brand awareness, how I work with my builders, how I control that narrative through the content so that it's consistent and there is a call to action. But don't get it twisted. None of this came easy. It was these little unlocks, just like you're talking about, that over the years, I would add in and be like, man, I'm putting all this effort into content, but I'm not actually telling anybody that, hey, call me now. Otherwise, I'm going to sell out this block of condos, or comment on the post and engage. Tell me if you like me. Tell me if you hate me. And you've done a great job with that, of creating a muscle, but you're thoughtful about it, right? Like you almost look at it like working out. We were talking about that with James and Zillow Killer and all those guys, that it's like going to the gym. You got to actually do it consistently, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to do 1,000 reps tomorrow. I always use the example of running, which up until very recently, I hated. But even so, I'm a horrible runner and I have zero desire ever in my life to run a marathon. But let's just say I wanted to run a marathon. Again, zero desire to do it, but let's just say I wanted to run a marathon. I'm not going to run 26 miles tomorrow. I am not physically capable of it. At this point in my life, I mean, it's been a while since I've run, even though I have a treadmill in my place, but I would probably run maybe a mile or two, three tops. I will be so sore probably before I even go to bed tonight if I was to do that. And so we have this framework in our minds, especially with, God bless Gary Vaynerchuk, but if you don't upload content at all, it is not realistic for you to upload 10 pieces of content on every single platform. That does not make sense. I don't even do that. And it goes back to me just saying, like, more is only more if more is actually connecting. If you know what your intention is, if you know what you're trying to do. Yes, there's that element of documenting, but even if you're documenting, what is your intention here? Because I can think, in my mind, I know people who on a scheduler, they are posting every single day. They're
Doesn't
using
hit.
all of the hashtags,
Yeah.
but they are still exactly where they were 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
You could tell it,
Like,
right? Like you see the post and you're just like, yeah, okay. Like it's literally the same quote. It's the same everything. Like you're not bringing me into your world and showing me your journey. Like I want to know
It's
who
even
you
it's almost manufactured authenticity even,
are. Mhm.
where they're bringing me in where I'm seeing them in the sauna, I'm seeing them run the miles, I'm seeing them put their camera set up in their homes, and
Sure.
I see it, but like, where your business is not growing. Like, you are still at the job that you hate. You are still in the relationship that sucks. Like, what are you doing? And so it just gets back to, it's one thing if you're going to be documenting the journey and uploading consistently, but again, what is your intention? Because something that I say long before I met James, but this is why James and I got along so well, is, as I always say, your platform should be your vessel, not your end goal. We think that the goal is to get followers and likes and views, and like, those are cool. The vanity metrics are nice. They certainly can add to the clout. However, I know plenty of people, clients who come to me desperately, who have millions of followers, zero influence,
Yeah.
have made $0, like themselves at level zero.
Well, some of the
Meanwhile,
greatest people I know that have
yeah,
everything have nothing. I can tell you that directly.
yeah. And then people who maybe don't even have social media, or they have a couple hundred or a couple thousand followers, and yet their influence and their impact is tremendous. They are pulling sales from their followers. They're starting, and that's also why I can confidently say, put me on a platform, start me at zero, I will grow it. I will attract the right people, I will convert sales. Why? Because I bring the humanization back into whatever that platform is. I think about the consumer, putting the consumer first. How are they consuming this platform? What are they doing? On TikTok, I know chances are people are scrolling to numb, or they're scrolling because they are numb. They're also scrolling because they want to feel. They want to feel energized, they want to feel happy, maybe they just want to feel connected. But I know that I need to create a pattern interruption in that first frame, not the first 3 to 5 seconds, in that first frame, to get their attention and then to pull them in. When it comes to Instagram or Instagram Reels, I need to be thinking about what is the picture? What is the first line in my caption? I also know they're probably listening to this without sound. So I can't just talk. I need to have text. I need to have captions. Otherwise, I'll maybe watch this later, but I'll keep scrolling. So all of those different elements are the tactical piece that you then have to tie into your perspective. And that is how you ultimately create community. But having your audience and your consumer top of mind is always what will win.
So you're using a lot of intent in what you're doing. I mean, you're yourself, and there's such a dichotomy between those two things because you want to be consistent in the buckets of content and everything else too. But I've even noticed that, like when I see my content getting boring from the standpoint of it being a repetitive block of posts, I completely mix it up because I'm like, I wouldn't watch that. Like, why do I think that my life's so important, or be so precious about my content that it has to look such a certain way that I expect anybody else to feel engaged with that, right? And
Mhm.
again, just being intentful with it is everything. What do you use to add text to your actual posts and videos that you do? Because I think the audience would love to hear this. I've heard it, but I
Yeah.
wanted you to share it with them.
A couple of things, but one thing stood out to me really quickly. One word, you. You. So many people forget to use the word you.
Hmm.
And you'll notice if you go back and listen to this conversation, there are times when I say people, there are times when I'm specifically speaking to myself, but I'm using the word you very frequently. Not even you guys, but you. And it is because you need to create an intimate shared experience on every single platform that you are on. You need to know exactly who you are talking to, whether you are speaking into a podcast or speaking on Clubhouse. It is a simple, again, going back to social experimentation here, reading the room, knowing who you're talking to, and making it about you. So you need to start using the word you, whether it is in the first sentence, definitely the first three, but ideally you're using the word you in that first sentence so that it feels that connection. It needs to be instant. It needs to be instant. Some of you take 60 seconds, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes 30 minutes to warm up into a conversation and for you to get out of your head because that record light turned on or because the microphone turned on or because you can see a hair or you're looking at the teleprompter and like it's keeping you from connecting. So when you can go back to you and when you know exactly who you is, it will get you to connect and faster. But then also you mentioned tools. So before I even get into the adding the text tool, one tool that has absolutely changed the game for me, just even in the last month, it is called otter.ai. I don't think that there's a mobile version. Maybe there is, but I use it on my desktop. And typically before I'm about to have a conversation, whether it's recorded or not, whether it's on Clubhouse or maybe I'm just thinking about what I want to write that week, but I will turn on Otter, hit record, and it will instantly begin transcribing my words. And a lot of you get super stuck in the manufactured cookie cutter copy and don't know how to write even your own voice when it comes to text. And people should feel like they are hearing your voice in their text. That's one of the best compliments that you can give me as a comment is I can totally hear you saying this, or I always hear you saying this in my head because people need to feel that voice and they need to be able to know what it is. So I will use Otter, and then in some cases I will use it purely as notes, and I'll go back to it and I might see if there are any sort of patterns, questions that I'm getting over and over again. In some cases I will copy and paste it into a caption, or I will copy and paste that into transcriptions. But then into the transcriptions, I will, if I'm creating a video on mobile, there are two apps that I use, and I'm really passionate about transcriptions, not just because 84 if not higher percent of people are typically watching videos on non-TikTok without sound, but
Say
also
that again,
because
because I don't think most people understand that.
that what yeah, so more than 80% of people are consuming apps without sound, with the exception of Clubhouse and TikTok, where the engagement is very, very present. But for me, I'm also very passionate about accessibility and inclusivity. And as somebody who I have been coaching Special Olympics for more than half of my life at this point in time, I want to make sure that my content is accessible, especially for those who might be deaf, blind, or hard of seeing or hearing. And so I will go out of my way to include captions with that in mind as well. So there are two apps that I use for that if I am editing in my phone and if I want to just get something down and dirty quick. So there's Clip-O-Matic, and then there's Captions for TikTok. Captions for TikTok is not exclusive to TikTok, but if anything, it can also create captions for Instagram and for Snapchat if you're using Snapchat, which, believe it or not, a lot of people are these days because they're giving away $1 million a day on the platform, but I digress. I would not necessarily recommend it only unless you're a full-time creative creator, but I digress. So for captions for TikTok, it's great because you can film your video in the app up to 60 seconds and it will creatively put words across the screen and allow for that. But when you are able to add captions inside of the app, it will help your search optimization. So that is one reason why you would want to put captions inside of the app versus putting captions through a third-party app like Clip-O-Matic or Captions for TikTok. But if your goal is retention and inclusivity, then it's just fine to use those apps. Otherwise, V.io is the desktop platform that I use. That's V as in Victor, EED .io. I'm like, did I say that right? Yes, IO. And that's how you can create videos that are very Gary Vee-esque, where you have the title, you can add a little time code bar, you can add subtitles, captions, and then put it wherever you want and modify the dimensions for whether it's square or vertical or horizontal. It's super slick. And I think they have a free and a paid version, but the free version is still lovely.
Question for you. Could you shoot your own video and use Otter to transcribe as you're talking and then just copy and paste those captions natively in the application?
You technically probably could. Um, it would be one it would be one extra step because then you'd probably have to message them to your phone or to yourself.
Yeah.
And so that might be where the Clip-O-Matic or the captions would just be easier since you're on
You
the
don't
app
get the
itself.
SEO component
Yeah.
like you were saying, right? That
Mhm.
that makes tons of sense. Well,
Yeah.
I've already got you past our typical time, so I want to honor your time. I know you're very busy. You just got off a podcast with Phil Treadwell, one of my good buddies. I can't say his name. I got a couple questions from the audience I want to rip through with you and
Totally.
let you go. So Iris on my team, I sent you her profile actually the other day. Asked, do you think on TikTok it is good to have a cohesive looking grid? Does it even matter? Or would this help you get more views?
Cohesive, yes. Aesthetically pleasing, no. What I mean by that is you should be thinking about your grid like a portfolio or like a playlist. So, what I recommend is when you're about to upload your video, you have the option to be able to choose the cover. And by cover, it means which frame you want to have looping on your actual profile grid. But in that same section, you can pick a title card. And that will allow for you to pick whether it's a red block or a green block or whatever it is. You can add text. And so what I'd recommend doing is pick one consistent title block and have it be the same every single time and title them like you would a playlist. So pretend like I'm coming to your profile for the very first time. I want to figure you out to decide if I want to follow you or not. Are your titles making it really easy for me to pick a video beyond just view count to get to know what it is that you're putting out? It will give people a sneak peek into the type of content that you serve. So rather than just saying like, I have a secret, like it should say, we're having a baby or, just whatever would grab people's attention and want to learn more about who you are and what you're about and have that be consistent throughout. There are a lot of people who miss out on views and also watch time. That's important. I mentioned that watch time is really important on TikTok, but it's also how much time people are spending on your profile. So let's just say someone comes to your profile and they watch a bunch of videos, but they end up deciding, you know what, I don't really want to follow Justin. Well, TikTok will be like, are you sure though? Because you spent a lot of time on Justin's profile. This works for haters as well. Like TikTok is very much identified that haters are confused admirers. So let's say someone's coming to your profile, they just want to creep and stalk all of your content. TikTok will be like, are you sure though? Like we're going to keep recommending Justin on your For You page because you're spending a lot of time watching his videos. And think you might actually like him. So the more time spent on your profile, the better. And title cards are a great use of that. That is also going to make your profile look cohesive, even if it's not.
You taught me something today. I've looked at those red title cards. I've always looked at like putting a text layover. I'm like, I can't find them. Title cards. You just solved the problem for me. So thank you very much. I
Got
heard
you.
this yesterday, actually, super timely question as well from Iris. And then we'll get to John before we let you go. And it was, what do you think of using trendy music and making the video match more of your interest or niche? Do you think it'll help you get more views? So trending music, does that help increase the actual engagement?
Okay. I'm going to take y'all to church for a second because this is a huge misconception on TikTok. So there's this misconception on TikTok that if you use trending sounds, you will have a higher probability of going viral. And doesn't really work like that. Again, it goes back to human behavior. We are more inclined to pay attention to something if it sounds familiar. So if you're using a trending sound and you're maybe following that trend, people will be more inclined to listen because maybe they've heard that song before or they've seen that trend before and they want to see how you put your spin on it. At the same time, TikTok, and this isn't just based on theory, they have revealed how they recommend content on the For You feed. And one of those pieces is based upon the music that is used in content that you have been watching. So, if, say, a piece of content is doing really well, or if you happen to use a sound that I just watched in somebody else's video, there is a higher probability that you will be recommended to me based upon the music and not so much the content. So, that's the role that music plays just in general and how it works. That being said, however, it's not going to necessarily help you. And in fact, I actually say that sometimes using music can hurt you. And here's why. You can look in the news. TikTok has had a lot of battles going back and forth in terms of what is considered commercial use on the platform and how record labels feel about using music, especially as it pertains to creators and businesses. And so, what ends up happening sometimes is you might see music that's in the library. However, weeks or months later, the sound gets taken down. And now all of a sudden, you have a video up and it has no sound. Your audio has been eliminated because that music is no longer considered appropriate for the platform for whatever reason. So I always like to say, if you're going to use music, your best bet is using instrumental or something that is royalty free or something that is absolutely not an original piece of work. But also, I would challenge you, don't use music. I'm not saying that you shouldn't or that you can't, but I would challenge you to go a certain period of time where you're not using any music as your crutch, as your excuse, as your source of reason to blame or why you went viral, so that you can actually see what is working on a very basic human content driven level before you start adding some of those bells and whistles. So I hope that was helpful, but
It
that's
was,
just
yeah.
an
I'm not using
overarching
music and
picture of
stuff.
how the music works.
Yeah, and you're expanding and telling me things I didn't know about the platform and how it all works on the back end. And I don't use music in my posts because again, I'm not dancing, right? I'm just trying to drop info, and I think that's super helpful. We also had John that asked if they run a real estate investment company and they're looking to grow their presence online. Do you offer one-on-one coaching? I don't. It's funny because you've never pitched anything on any platform I've ever seen you on, so I don't even know the answer to this question.
Yes. Yes, but here's the fine line. When I say that I offer coaching, some people get confused and think that I am a social media manager. Like I
Okay.
am going to create the content and write the posts and all of that. I don't do that. Let me be very clear. I do not do that. I will give you the tools. I can give you the training. And so I do coach on a one-on-one, small group, large group, and also brokerage level as it pertains to this particular industry. So sometimes what I will do is I will either train agents, leaders individually and on a one-on-one basis, or they might bring me in to their brokerage and I will coach all of their agents and do so going through my trademarked curriculum. So I have the action forward method, which is my coaching style. It is a mix of marketing, motivation, mindset, and strategy. And we go through my 8 pillars, which will set you up to fully understand your audience, your messaging, but even in terms of outreach. So let's say that you want to make an even larger footprint, again, without putting spend behind the advertisement, learning how to find partnerships, learning how to get yourself on podcasts, learning how to pitch yourself to local news stations or national ones for that matter. So I offer that in a one-on-one, small group, large group, or a customized corporate curriculum, and would love to work with you if you want to slide into my DMs, and would be happy to connect.
That's awesome. Well, it must work because you're on my podcast and you didn't actually ask me to. I ended up asking you. So that works very
Appreciate you.
well. Yeah. You know, I just wanted to give you your shine too, because you've offered so much value in so many of these rooms. And something I will say is when I watch somebody like yourself, the best thing about it is, yeah, you're giving some really high level ideas. You can get tons of information from, your TikToks and everything else, from things to actually implement, but you're always growing, you're always digging. So even if I get all your info right now, in a year I can come back to you and I know you're going to keep digging. You got that shovel, you put in the work. I'm going to give you my platform for a second. If you wanted to put up a billboard everywhere for everybody to see, what would that billboard say?
Oh my God.
No pressure.
That's not what I would say. I'm like, wow. When you put it that way, God, provide value from hello. Provide value from hello. When you walk into a room, whether it's a virtual one or a real one, but not going in there expecting what am I going to get out of this, but rather that you get to be there, that you have something to contribute, whether you are brand new to a space where you've been into it for a year. Be willing to give without expectation and not expect anything in return. We get really caught up in transactions and thinking that everything needs to be equally give and take. And by the way, need to also give you your flowers with how I am so grateful to have you. I don't want to say in my network, like in my family. We say that very often, but I very truly feel that way, where I know I can call on you, you will show up. Vice versa. Like if you said, Giselle, I really need you to get on a plane tomorrow and I want you to like come to Lake Louise with my wife, and I'd be like, okay, let's
Mhm.
go. Um, Granted, we're in a COVID world and I might get stuck in Canada, but I would trust that you would let me, live in your office if I needed to. But just providing value from hello and 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 also knowing that you do have a story and something special to offer to the world. Your experience is yours and yours alone. You are the best at what you do, the way that you do it. And so knowing that you have a gift to share, and one of my favorite quotes from Marianne Williamson is that you playing small does not serve the world. So that's, I guess, on the spot what my answer would be there, but
I,
super grateful for you and
I
all of
love
the
that quote.
value and the jewelry store gems that you bring to all the things.
Iron sharpens iron, right? So yeah, shout out to, I'm actually going to talk to Jaime at 3 o'clock too. So I'll tell him you say hello. You brought so much value in this conversation. Everybody go give her a follow and check her content out, and hope this inspired people to really level up and think big, and you can do it. So appreciate your time, Giselle.
Yes, appreciate you. I will talk to you probably in like an hour. Let's be
Yeah.
real.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.